Greetings, travelers. My name is Nick Murphy.
And my name is Satchell Drakes.
And we're here to take you on an interstellar journey through the darkest corners of your mind.
To reveal?
To unlock your hidden passion for
cinema.
Oh, I didn't say the name of it. I didn't say that this is part of the Cinephilia Anonymous Telecast. That's what this is. So if you guys are hearing this, you're going to notice it's going to sound a little different because we're doing a very special episode. We're doing this, we're live streaming this. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you missed it. Sorry, but here's the best part of it.
Oh, that's right. Filling with those people.
Yes, just letting them know, just in case.
Yeah.
So, different kind of setup, different kind of experience.
We wish you were here.
Yeah, we wish you were here too in my living room. So, and also a different viewing experience of our podcast, because usually we decide on a film, watch it separately, make notes, talk about it, and record it. This time,
it's all emotional.
Yeah, we watched it a few hours ago, finished up the movie, got some food, and now we're live streaming our thoughts on it. And I think what we're going to do is make this a two-parter, right?
Yeah, so this first version is going to be... everything that's happening live is going to be first impressions, because we have a lot of unprocessed thoughts and sort of gut reactions to what we just watched.
Mm-hmm.
And reasonably so, because there's a lot of stuff that go on in Interstellar, and there are a lot of different talking points. And then I think after we kind of let it simmer, now for myself, this is the first time I'm watching it, so I definitely need a lot of ideas to simmer, because there's cool meta things, there's cool visual things, and I want to be able to just like revisit it and do justice to the amount of work and thought that was put into it. So we're going to have a second part where we kind of dive into it a little bit more thoughtfully.
Yeah, this will be kind of a gut reaction telecast for us. Now, I saw the film when it was in theaters. I saw it in 70mm, which was awesome. Thought a lot about the movie since then, and then now that it's available on home video, I've been aching to watch it, and I'm glad we could do it together. And we'll dive right into it, man.
Yeah, let's get into it. So
about Interstellar, let me bring up some facts that I wrote down about the film. It was directed by Christopher Nolan. Yeah, right. And I think music was by Hans Zimmer.
Oh, are you serious?
I think so.
That makes sense.
Yeah, music by Hans Zimmer, right? Written by Jonathan Nolan and Christopher Nolan.
Which I just discovered that they were brothers and that they write stuff together. Now, have they written? Is it the same deal with like Inception, all the other movies where they wrote together?
I think a lot of times they do write together. I think they wrote The Prestige together. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Okay.
Co-written several screenplays with his brother, including Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, and Memento was based on his short story. Okay, so I was totally
okay.
But yeah, they do collaborate together.
And then Chris's brother, he also said, what's Chris's brother's name?
Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan.
Jonathan. Does John just the screenplay, or he'll direct as well?
No, they're not.
It's weird to just see his name. Okay.
No, it's not like a Coen Brothers kind of thing. I think he just writes, and then his brother writes and directs.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's someone sent you a question on Twitter, as I'm not paying attention.
Hey,
to
Mike. Yeah. I got your question, and we're going to read through it, and we're definitely going to get to it. It looks very thorough.
Yeah, there's some really good ones on that we saw on our Reddit, our subreddit, and then we have a screen in front of us as we're live streaming this. And we'll take some questions from you guys. First about the movie, and then maybe later we'll do whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's just dive right in. What did you think?
All right. So I thought a lot of things. So the number one thing that stood out for me with Interstellar was it was probably the first. It was the first sci-fi oriented film that deals a lot with, I guess what you'd call like, for now we're going to call it this. I don't mean to demerit it, but like infotainment science, right? And what I mean by that isn't like fake science, but like it touches on science and like physics and quantum things a lot, right?
Right.
And usually when a movie dives into that territory, you find it gets very high-minded in a kind of way where all the scientists that are depicted in it, they've kind of ascended emotion. They've ascended, like, thinking about, like, relational hang-ups. Like, usually, if it's a sci-fi and it's about, like, scientists doing something and covering something, there usually isn't really, like, this huge romance component to it. And not that there was romance here in particular, but there was, like, family value stuff. And these scientists were very much human. They weren't Poindexters, and they weren't, like, just big brains walking around solving the world's issues.
Yeah.
They kind of came to the end of themselves. And I thought that it was really cool seeing both of these really, like, big themes stand tall next to each other, rather than one undermining another.
Yeah, and I think, I feel like a lot of people's complaint about the film comes, I guess, from, you know, we were having dinner, we were talking about, like, the many acts of this film, not just like a 3-act kind of structure, but there's like, a lot of things.
25.
Right, and not like a Lord of the Rings multiple ending kind of thing, but more in just like a different kind of flow of like a storytelling kind of thing. And I feel like a lot of people get hung up on the script's kind of breakdown of everything, and I feel like if this was made by an indie director with a smaller budget, by like an indie company releasing it, it kind of wouldn't have had those like chalkboard moments where they're explaining step by step of what's happening. And
right.
So like,
definitely.
I feel like those like chalkboard moments like that, I feel like are important.
That's a good way of putting it.
It really is. Like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's a chalkboard scene where Indiana Jones draws and breaks down what the Ark of the Covenant is for the people who don't know what it is.
Right.
So like Interstellar has this, obviously, like there's a chalkboard in the Dean's office.
Which the Nolan brothers are really good at doing, and we talked about how they did that in Inception. Like, they introduced this completely new idea.
Right.
Or in Interstellar's place, like, not even something that's completely new, but something that, like, all these different sciences and theories that existed but we weren't familiar with.
Right. And
used unaware characters as sort of like the dummies to explain to the audience everything that was going on.
Yeah, and I think you kind of need moments like that to kind of just set up what happens and let the audience know why some piece of science is happening. And there's moments of it specifically when I was rewatching it where I was kind of like, I probably would have enjoyed this more if this didn't happen. So at the end of the film, when he's in that kind of that fifth dimensional structure, Tar's voice can be heard. He starts speaking to Tars and explaining what's happening. I enjoyed the first part of that scene where he's discovering it and then picking out the pieces of what's happening and drawing that conclusion in my own mind.
Right.
And then I could see where someone would feel like insulted by having Matthew McConaughey then explain all of those things.
There was a lot of explanation in the end, you're right.
Yeah, and I like that open-endedness, but at the same time, I feel like for a more complete story and for the average movie-going audience, I don't think there's anything wrong with grounding them and letting them in on the end.
Sure.
You know, letting them walk away understanding what happened instead of, well, I didn't understand, like walking out of the theater being like, well, I didn't get that at all. Right. You know, at least they can ground it for them.
That ended up being a big complaint anyway, which is unfortunate, where a lot of people, for myself, I didn't see it in the theater, but I had a bunch of friends that did. In the months leading up to finally getting to catch it on Blu-ray, I mean, some of my friends whose opinions I respect the most for like movies and entertainment, would say, man, they really had me Act 1, Act 2, and then towards the end, when everything was supposed to be tied up, I was so lost, and they dropped the ball. So it's funny to hear that even now, just considering how much they made it a point to, I guess what you call it, like over tutorializing.
Sure.
What's happening. I thought it was appropriate personally. I thought that it made a lot of sense to have it that way, just so you could keep everybody, and it just seems like a necessary evil. I'd love to know what you think about it more. Like, it seems like a necessary evil to have these explicit chalkboard moments. Mm-hmm. When you just consider the scale of the project that you're working on and the investment, and obviously the amount of people that you want to reach out to, you kind of have to steal a little bit from letting the audience arrive there on their own in some aspects in order to tell them what's happening in front of them. Yeah,
I feel like that there's a way for you to explain to an audience what needs to be explained, and there's obviously several ways to do it. You can have a character who takes the place of the audience. They become like all the questions that the audience has, that character is asking, and another character is explaining that to them. But I feel that sometimes that's just not the best way to convey the story, and sometimes it's just better to have these moments, kind of giving everyone a refresher on relativity. I don't.
Right. Yeah.
It's such a high concept thing, and I think that's fine to reground your audience and explain that to them.
I think it's a lovely thing to do.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of. I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of hand holding,
Mm-hmm.
But like it can be overdone to it. Like if Michael Caine had this moment where he's like, "Let me explain how rocket boosters work."
Yeah.
Like, all right, we all know how rocket boosters work, Michael Caine. Like I don't think that level, but like something like that. I think is okay, and just kind of gives everyone a touchstone to kind of, oh, okay, this is what they're doing, and now I understand how it works.
I agree.
And I feel like somebody brought up in our stream about it being pseudoscience, which who is it? Nick versus. Interstellar pseudoscience had basis of notions of real science, or at the very least, it had fake science that didn't seem too impossible.
Right.
Unlike, to say, Lucy, which had the whole "you only use 10% of your brain" go to crap.
Right.
I'm okay with pseudoscience in a movie. I feel like that's what I'm there for. I'm there for. If I wanted a scientific breakdown, I would watch Cosmos. I'd watch an actual presentation of that. If I want liberties taken, which most of us who go to movies do, I think we want liberties taken. I think we want things exaggerated and things to seem larger than life and to view the impossible. I think that's what going to movies is all about.
I think I'm less convinced with testing the science in the movie with the science in real life as I am with testing how the universe and the people in it react to whatever alternative science they present to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if everyone's flying, it's fine that in the real world no one flies.
Right.
But the universe and the people in it in that movie need to react in a way that I feel is very realistic to if everyone lived in a world where people were flying.
Sure, exactly. It's almost Anne Hathaway has this moment where she says that she's not afraid of nature. Something like that. She's not afraid of nature, but she's afraid of what nature can do. I'm totally butchering the line, but something like that. Where this is Christopher Nolan setting up the world, and whether or not that world is based on our world, this world definitely seems extrapolated from our world. I don't think everything needs to fit tidy into the science of our world. I think there could be some liberties taken, and I think this movie does that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see.
I saw one.
Yeah,
point. Oh, you have the match books, right?
Yep.
I saw one point earlier. I kind of
Yeah. One thing I really did enjoy while you're looking that up is the setup of the film. So Christopher Nolan's movies always kind of start with, I don't want to say always, but most of the ones that I'm bringing to mind start with a scene in the film that you're watching and it's taken out of context. You have no idea what this is or where it's from. Like there's a shot later in the film that's like of the bookcase and the dust and stuff that you see in the beginning of the film.
Right.
Which the Prestige had that with like the hats in the field, and there's another Inception did. I'm trying to think how Inception starts. It starts with Leonardo DiCaprio on the beach.
Does it?
Yeah. So
you're right. Yeah, he always. Yeah.
And so this is an interesting motif for a director who is always playing with time and how we perceive time. This movie just seems perfect for him. It seems like for someone who's obsessed about time and thinks about time in very interesting ways, what better way to do that than the movie about time and relativity and
the 5 dimensions.
Yeah.
And, see an alternate reality alternate galaxy where time is a physical
representation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then the visuals that they chose to convey all of that stuff was out of this world.
Yeah. It was very much like a film strip. So the way film runs through the projector, it runs vertically from top to bottom. Unless IMAX is just sideways, but So most times it's like that. And so the way film works, I'm not explaining to you on this way, just the audience, just in case.
No, I need to know.
Is like
what is? I know SD cards.
Right. So 35 millimeter film. So what happens is there is a shutter, a mechanical shutter, and it's basically a circle with a wedge cut out of it. And in that wedge is lights projected through. The wedge illuminates the strip of film for 1/24th of a second, and then it advances and it goes complete 360 to the next one. So what you're seeing is you're actually seeing black frames in between every one of those 24 frames.
Okay.
And through our mind's like persistence of vision is how your mind just edits those out basically.
Okay.
Your mind edits out these black frames and you see these things moving, right? So if something goes wrong in the projection and that shutter slips, all you see is these vertical strips of things going through. It just looks like these vertical blurs, right? Which is what you see at the end of the movie when he's manipulating time. They're just like blurs like that.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, those are books, but like they're attached by strings of pixels of books.
And everything winds up looking like these streaks, almost like like a series of strings like strapped together. It's nuts. So when he's manipulating the watch and stuff, that's what it would look like. You wouldn't have that solid image before, but you would just see these streaks and stuff.
Yeah.
So I found that like an interesting way to convey that, to convey time moving in this manner.
Yeah.
I don't know, just something off the top of my head that really like blew my mind. Did you find that?
It's sort of like it was.
No.
I thought it was something. It wasn't something. That's cool. But we can get into. I mean, why don't we can jump around like my thoughts
totally.
and then some of the thoughts. So we have one thought from Mike Killam.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just pull it up. He sent it via Twitter because he didn't want to get caught up in spoilers. Which has me curious what his question could be exactly if he didn't watch. But we'll see. All right, so Nolan is widely regarded as one of the great directors of our time. It might be hailed as the great director if Tarantino retired, but also receives a fair amount of criticism from cinephiles with a more technical grasp of the industry. The big argument is that Nolan is actually a much better editor than he is a director, as his big-budget super films seem to be more heady and spectacular in the literal sense than they are emotionally driven. More often than not, you leave the theater breathless and filled with dozens of grand, pseudo-philosophical ideas without any real emotional attachment to his characters. In fact, I tend to think of his set pieces and concepts as more engaging and immersive than the individuals that inhabit them. Mm-hmm. It's Gotham City and the themes and tones it sets that captivate you, not Batman, Bruce Wayne, or Christian Bale.
Yeah.
It's the multi-layered dream state that you can't stop thinking about, not Cobb or Ariadne. That's not to say there aren't standout performances. Heath Ledger's Joker, Hugh Jackman's Angier, right. Because Nolan works almost exclusively with incredible actors, some who are relatively unknown before his movie. I guess the question is Christopher Nolan truly one of the great modern directors, or is his real talent in the writing and editing room masterfully covering up the fatal flaw that a more casual audience hasn't stumbled upon yet? That is, that's definitely a big question.
Yeah, there's a lot to pick apart there.
Yeah.
Next question.
I know, right? There are a lot. All right, so that's like a diamond in a sense that there are like so many different cuts there, and some I agree with, some with I don't. I think with regards to the depth of characters, I can agree. You can chime in as well. Like I can agree that I don't have an affinity for any Christopher Nolan character specifically. Mm-hmm. I definitely am pulled away with the world and the characters. I don't believe that the fact that the environment sits with me more than the characters takes away from performance or takes away from like the validity of the film or its ability to captivate people and teach them things. But what was the first part of the question? There was a first part that was really interesting.
Well, I feel like with his characters, for me anyway, I never feel like his characters are people. I feel like his characters are just characters that exist to tell that story. They
pieces,
don't feel. They don't feel like
chess pieces. Rather.
Yeah. They don't feel. I understand these characters have like backstories and they have futures that we see, before and after the film and stuff. But for me, their characters never live long. They don't live past that for me. There are other characters that I can think of where I wonder what their day is like, or what they're experiencing after the film, before the film.
Right.
With Christopher Nolan's characters, they always just exist in this world, in this space, in this time, and then stop existing.
Right.
So to say that, I don't know if to say that he is bad at writing characters. For me, in my experience with his films, I feel like he writes great characters because they exist to be characters, not to be real people or to be...
not to be the epicenter of the film.
Right.
And then also another thing is that Christopher Nolan's films they actually, in I think just about every circumstance, at least for the memorable ones that I'm familiar with, they all serve to tell the audience a message. They all serve, like, all the stories are about a world, or recognizing a world much bigger than ourselves.
Right.
Bigger than ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, for Interstellar, it's the galaxies. You know what I mean? Just about anything. First of all, like, just about anything that's spectacle in that regard, that's dealing with, like, interstellar travel, you're inevitably going to get this weighty sense of, like, the universe that's outside of you. You know what I mean? Like, because there were multiple moments where I was watching it and I was thinking about, like, man, that guy's he's just lost out there. I mean, he's cut off from all communication. It's completely silent. Yeah. What does that feel like? Like, what, like how weak and lost do you feel with that? You know what I mean? And then the same thing with, the world of dreams that people create, that being so much bigger, even the mystery around the concept of dreams being so much bigger than who we are and being so mysterious. You know what I mean? Like, he deals with mystery in a lot of ways that I think lends the focus more to the environments than the characters. And for Interstellar, I thought Interstellar was an interesting turn because emotion was okay. Like, time and time again, the Nolan brothers would sermonize the mystery of love and talk about how the core of love and emotion relationships shouldn't be undermined because they're not scientific.
Sure.
But they exist, therefore they are scientific in some capacity, but just not, like, serialized. Like, just not, there isn't a formula for it. And because of that, they should be respected more, because that mystery lends itself to something, I don't know, I guess, more interesting than having the answer.
Yeah, I agree.
So in that way, I did feel like Interstellar was very emotional and not super duper calculated.
Yeah. Akira on our stream brought up a good point that Nolan's characters are emotional pods. I would agree with that to an extent, that they're there to deliver these emotions to us and further the story, and I think that works. And then Mike brought up another point. Just to be clear, I love Nolan films. I'm not using his lack of emotional depth to knock his films, just to bring up that maybe he's good at it.
He's good at it. So
what he's good at is so good it is a possible flaw in his directing. Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah, I can see how being so good at a piece of the filmmaking puzzle could be conceived as like a flaw.
Right.
Where that's the thing that everyone focuses on and, like, can't see past this one piece that you kind of put out there.
Sure. I definitely see it as a strength. I see it as kind of like his fingerprint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, what's the other part of his question?
That was all.
No, there was, like, another part we were talking about, like, toward the end. In my head, I'm really excited. I'm going to talk about that last part.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. The last part says, I guess the question is Christopher Nolan truly one of the great modern directors, or is his real talent in the writing and editing or masterfully covering up the flaw that a more casual audience hasn't studied upon yet?
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we could kind of touch on that. I mean, not that Christopher Nolan is my favorite director. I enjoy his films. I think he's probably a master at his craft. I would really say. I think his
Safe
films
to say.
Yeah, I think his films are very well done. He's such a big proponent of film that it's hard to say that he's not a good director. I feel like he's, I don't want to say he's like a Spielberg, but like,
I'm curious to know why you wouldn't.
I feel like
Not that it's challenging. I'm just curious to know.
No. I feel like to say someone is the next Spielberg, I feel like it's cliche because I mean the man is holy. The man is a God. You know, he's the film equivalent of the Beatles. You know.
Okay.
So on a personal level, I don't really care for the Beatles. I respect them. I respect what they've done for music.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
You're with me.
It's just something that I was not exposed to their music. I don't have
exactly
the nostalgia and the love for it that people have. I get that, and I super appreciate it. And when I listen to a Beatles album, I'm like, oh wow, I do get this. I really understand it. It's just it would be in the same vein of saying this person, this band, the next Beatles, man, the next Beatles. It's like, yeah, I don't know if we can have that again. Right. You know. People kept saying, "Oh, he's the next Hitchcock." It's like, "Oh man, what Hitchcock did made Hitchcock Hitchcock. You can't be the next Hitchcock. You got to be the next one of your own." Yeah. So I feel like Christopher Nolan, he's kind of made this own kind of he's made his own pathway, and to call him the next Spielberg is I don't know. I feel like it trivializes what he's done, you know, for the medium.
I think so too. Yeah, I generally don't use that phrase because, and obviously when I was asking like to kind of find out
wanted me to confess
the quality. No, not at all. Like
you just wanted me to reveal the pedestal.
Maybe a little bit, yeah. I don't know if the role. The phrase. I don't know what to do with the phrase. Like just because every director sort of has like their own voice and everything.
Yeah.
Going off what they're saying, but obviously I understand the point of the phrase is to kind of show like this guy is going to like impact everyone in the same way that this person before him did. You know
Yeah.
But even then, it's impossible to like properly like predict that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Though Chris Nolan definitely seems to be really awesome.
Yeah, I think he's extremely talented. He's really good at what he's done, and I would imagine he'll get to some point. Every one of his films kind of like staircases to like the next thing. They're like they're escalating to this insurmountable peak. Like every film has a bigger budget than the next, and it's you know more and more talented actors. At some point, he's going to take a misstep, and then I feel like everyone's going to pounce on him and kind of make.
Really.
That's just kind of my prediction. Like he's going to have.
Is that like that's like a real cyclical thing, right?
I mean, it very well could be. I mean, it seems like in the film medium, every kind of director goes through that where they have these home run after home run, and I guess. When you're so good and when you knock it out of the park every time, people just expect you to like hit a home run every time you're at bat. And sometimes, like, I'm not the most sports person, but sometimes it's just more advantageous to get a solid double and get somebody on base, you know? Okay. And like, I just feel like it's going to keep going, and then that misstep is going to happen, and everyone's going to be like, I knew it, he sold out, he's the worst, you know? It happens with every great director, like Martin Scorsese. Everyone's just like, he's a god. He can't. Everything he does, everything he touches, he's got the Midas film touch. Everything he touches is going to turn to gold. And then he makes something like Hugo, and everyone's like, oh well, there it goes.
Oh
you know?
Yeah, I remember that.
Or I'm trying to think of.
Was that bad
like
though?
Another director. I enjoyed Hugo. It was a It was a love letter to film. And like I can understand how people be like, "Where's Joe Pesci?" You know, you know what I mean. And like, and Spielberg has those too. I mean, everyone will say, you know, Crystal Skull or I don't know, like War Horse or something like that would be like the worst movie he's ever done. It very well could be the worst movie he's ever done, but that doesn't negate the great things that he's done.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like musicians get like that too. You know, they put out like a new album, and they're like, oh well.
Oh right,
you know,
yeah. Like the whole
yeah.
Anytime I feel like there is a specific cluster of the internet that like shuts down and goes crazy whenever a new Arcade Fire or Sufjan album comes out, and I'm just like, oh man, this is gonna be crazy! So much hype! The new Arcade Fire! Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
and like. The pressure, and sometimes I don't even know if the pressure sometimes is like you're gonna kill it for yourself if you
if you hype
it that much, you know what I mean? Like, or sometimes you like listen to the record, you're like, yeah, it's a record. I don't know.
It can't like every album Weezer puts out can't be the Blue album. It can't
exactly.
You know, when you have a back-to-back success like that, just count your blessings and you're like, wow, we got 2 great albums from this band. You know, the next one might not be the greatest thing ever, but let's just enjoy it and accept it and feel like that. But I feel
Reflector was fine.
Oh, Reflector was
It was
great.
fine.
Yeah. Reflector was great.
Actually, that was my favorite.
I liked Neon Vinyl.
Yeah,
that's really good. Oh man, that like brings me back to like film school. What was the first album?
The one with the feather, right?
Yeah.
I forget what it's called.
Is it Neighbors or Neighborhood? No. I forget what it was.
You played Sufjan with Coldplay, and you're correct.
Yes,
I feel like everyone fell off of the Coldplay train after Viva La Vida.
Yeah.
Like when Milo Xyloto came out, people were like, "What?"
Yeah. No, I agree. Or Load and Reload if you're into Metallica. That's when
everyone fell off.
Everyone's like, Metallica, come on!
Yeah. Dude, Death Grips, yes.
Oh
Death Grips is
yeah.
what's
I'll have to look your stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so back to Interstellar. What?
We could trade the music.
No, we'll have to do that.
That'd be a good idea.
Some stuff.
Save you a whole bunch of depressing drag albums.
Somebody was trying to tell me that the new Death Cab album's really good.
They have a new record? Dude, they're going on. They have a show with We Were Promised. No, not We Were Promised. With Explosions in the Sky.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in New York. I was like,
cool.
whoa, that's like the perfect like high school nostalgia trip. Just feel good about yourself.
There's some really weird pairings going on recently. Yeah. The Pixies are coming to Philly, but they're opening for Robert Plant.
What?
And I was like,
that's so rando.
That's cool. And then, my wife is like a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan, so she was like, "Yo, Smashing Pumpkins is touring with Marilyn Manson." And I was like, "What? All right, I guess we'll go see that now."
I guess now it's just like greatest common denominator to like same generation.
Yeah,
let's go. They get both of us. They've heard both of us.
That's great. Oh my god.
Yeah.
All right.
Phil. So here, what are your thoughts on the technically visuals and sound?
Dude, it's such a 10 on all that stuff. You know, so we were watching it. I got a pretty good sound system in my house, if I do say so myself.
Dude, actually, I really felt it. Is that all from that soundbar?
No, so I recently replaced my sound system. I had a 5.1 system, and then Paul turned me onto the soundbar, and I was like, soundbar? I don't know about that. But he was like, no, it's a 5.1 soundbar. And I was like, oh, okay, do tell. So I rearranged my living room recently. Was looking. I didn't want to run wires everywhere. I didn't want to run, wires down into the basement and back up to deal with like real
That's
speakers
what you
and stuff.
did. Oh,
so,
dude,
no,
respect.
No. I was ready to, right? And then Paul told me about this soundbar. It has a sub, and the rear speakers plug into the sub, and the sub communicates wirelessly with the soundbar.
Where's the sub?
The sub's over here.
Holy
and the rear
crap.
speakers are back over here.
I didn't even...
And it just connects wirelessly.
Where? What?
Over there on my desk is the one speaker.
Oh, shoot, you're right.
Yeah, and from the Amazon thing, and then the other one... Oh, it's back over there behind.
Dude, yeah, that felt really good. I was like, is that all coming from the LCD? There's no way it sounds that good from the LCD.
Yeah, so, but it's great. So this movie is a very, very, very
intense,
loud, very, very quiet. There's no...
It goes... and then back to it.
It's McConaughey mumbling, and then he's like... There is no in between and no happy medium, which is great. It's still great. Yeah, so sound wise, I feel like this movie is a great show of what your sound system can do, right? So it's the music is very overpowering a lot of times. I remember sitting in the theater and thinking that, and I was like, I don't like. I'm watching this in IMAX. This mix can't be bad. Like there's no way that this has to be intentional, right? So when we were watching it again, I specifically made sure to listen for that stuff. And the score usually, the score will duck under dialogue and vice versa and stuff. With this, I feel like intentionally, the score overpowers dialogue all the time with complete disregard for that stuff. It's like, no, this is important. The music is important. This moment, this feeling is important. What these characters are saying is not important, and it was great.
Yeah.
it was very nice. It was hard to, not piss my neighbors off with it, but I think it's great. And then the visuals in this film are fantastic. So it was shot 2:3:5 aspect ratio, and then for many scenes there's IMAX, which fills up the entire frame. And
does it always translate to Blu-ray like that?
No, only Christopher Nolan films. Well, not only Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan started with The Dark Knight Rises. That was like the first one to like do that aspect ratio change
for home video.
Right, exactly. Before it was not something they really did, but now it's like this did it. One of the Hunger Games films had like IMAX scenes that they like would intersperse, and the aspect ratio would change and stuff. Okay. I recently rewatched The Dark Knight, and I found it like a little distracting, but for this, I enjoyed it because I was like, when they go to the space stuff, it was like, I want the full frame. I want to see all of it. I want to see as much of it as possible.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on?
So for myself, okay. So the moment that I realized that they were doing that jump between the two, I kept asking myself, is this? So for this, I'm gonna be I kept asking myself, would I ever do something like that? I think I would be so tempted to crop in and have everything be consistent.
Right.
I do appreciate having more real estate though.
Mm-hmm.
But then the idea of having to have like this forced letterbox makes me feel weird. I don't know if it's like a designery thing. Or like, I want everything to be consistent. But I remember just asking myself like how I felt about that. Mm-hmm. I guess it's sort of like a content versus aesthetic decision.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's like a film-heady thing to be enthusiastic about that or not. But there's definitely a part of me that likes both of it. Mm-hmm. So that was an interesting thing to do. I'd be interested in hearing what you guys think about that. And you.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to hear what you guys think. So Akira said Dark Knight Rises, same kind of thing. It was distracting for someone with ADHD. I can see that. And then recently, Grand Budapest Hotel did that, but they did it a little more restricted.
They shot IMAX?
No, they didn't shoot with IMAX. They changed like the aspect ratio. So Grand Budapest, like one sequence is all 2:3:5, one sequence is all 16:9, and then I think the majority is like 4:3. Yeah. I think so.
Maybe you don't even notice it if you're in it.
Yeah, I think
that's interesting.
But those sequences were kind of separated. There's the one time period is one format, another time period is another format, another time period is another format. So it's not like it's changing from shot to shot and scene to scene. It's more like sequence changing. Right. With Dark Knight, and Interstellar does this too when we're on Earth, is a lot of the outside stuff was IMAX, and then when they would go inside or some of like the dusk stuff seemed to be like 2:3:5. So I found like cutting those together kind of felt a little strange. But I think when you have like a distance and like a timeline, like the time separating those, I think it works.
I think it could also be really impactful if like you're having this dialogue between these two people and they're just sort of like talking heads who happen in 4:3, and then one of them like storms out, goes outside, and like you imagine like seeing them like outside of their house and there's like a field, and then it just jumps to anamorphic, like,
and just opens.
I can imagine just feeling like whoa, like just taking a big like I don't know.
I think it'd be cool. Yeah, it'd be like Dorothy going outside in Wizard of Oz. It's like
Yeah,
a total
exactly.
black and white to color kind of change.
Yeah.
And there's some like Grand Budapest handles that in a really nice way. I think Scott Pilgrim does this, but Scott Pilgrim's a very like stylized kind of way. So the whole movie's 16 by 9, and then for like super action sequences, like you see the frame squeeze in to like 2, 3, 5.
Wait, like they make it like transition
Right,
like that?
right. Like
That's cute.
You know, like, and like whenever like there's like an anime, I always find that like it's just imitating a style rather than like using that as like an aesthetic or like a stylistic choice. It's just that kind of stuff is an imitation. I feel like these are purposeful. And I read this, so I subscribed to this magazine called American Cinematographer. It's like
cool,
it's the American Society of Cinematographers, like insider magazine, basically.
That's sweet that you read magazines.
Oh my God, right? I've been subscribed since like 2007. I have a collection. It's kind of ridiculous. But so they interview the cinematographers and they talk about all that stuff. And I remember they did one about Scott Pilgrim, and they took a lot of care to that because when you shoot 16 by 9 or like it's called 185. You use different lenses, and the lenses do different things, and they affect the space, and they affect the lens flares and stuff like that. When you do anamorphic 235, it really makes things flare. So like you have to be like conscious of that,
right? Because it's shooting like this, and then you're pulling it out.
That's why all those flares happen. And like a friend of mine, he just got an anamorphic lens and was like super stoked to like shoot stuff with it. We did this like test of like in a Reading Terminal of just these like. I was walking around. There's like, I'll show you when we're done. It's really crazy.
Wait a minute. Wait, does the squish just do that to any light source?
It's a combination of like, so it's a combination of you pulling that information out, so it's going to exaggerate flares a little bit, but then because of like the lenses in between, it's like there's multiple lenses in there that are like
that's right
stuff.
Oh shoot!
Yeah,
got it. Those lenses are expensive, right?
They are. Well, for like film ones, they're really expensive.
Oh, they're only cine lenses, actually. Aren't
yeah.
They? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a conscientious choice that you make, conscious choice that you make. And for Scott Pilgrim, they would shoot those sequences with anamorphic lenses, and they would have to like digitally scale up, right? But then like scale it back down. It was like this whole process to get those flares and that style to fit into like these like formats and stuff. It's crazy.
That's cool. That's sweet. I didn't even know that they shot that manually. Just because there's such a really, really nice seamless marriage between like film and like After Effects-ish stuff. You know what I mean? I thought that they would just like use overlay, blending mode, multiply, or whatever. Sure. But that's super cool that they use like authentic lens flare.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I was kind of thinking about, and again, there wasn't like a necessarily like right or wrong, but like I thought that'd be just a good conversation to have. As far as like visuals, first of all, loved every frame was like every frame could be a photo, like the photography, every frame a painting. I know I was trying to refrain from saying that.
You're right.
But no, every frame literally was like a painting. Like even the beginning, like they're having breakfast and there's like anamorphic like lights behind the heads, and I'm just like, I like leaned over to Nick. I was like, yeah, man, I'm about that. That's really cool. Like, let's just go straight out the gate. Everything is a spectacle right now.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that. All the independent, like all the in between moments were so. They look so polished, and the grain was so cool. Like, there's no. I wish I had like some super technical term for it, but I mean, I have a whole bunch of them. But honestly, like, I just want to say it looked really cool. And it looked really great, and so many other things that I really enjoyed. So I think for me, like, I probably have some of the more specific reactions I have are definitely with the sound than with the visuals. Because the visuals, I really enjoyed them. I enjoyed that the assisted robots they used weren't CG.
Oh yeah, Tarzan Case.
Tarzan Case. That was really cool.
When we're done, there's a special feature that I've been holding off watching about the two of them that I want to watch with you.
Okay, cool.
So, like, I saw something online about it, and I was like, oh, they're practical? I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. I was like, all right, we have to watch this thing, so we'll watch that and we'll talk about it.
Sweet.
So that's such a good thing. Those robots, those personality that they have are
That's great. That they're not, we'll help you soon, but they're just like dudes. They're just like Joe and like Wayne. You know what I mean?
Joe and Wayne.
and like, oh my gosh, that's great. And that was, and using them was such a great way to round off like the perpetual serious nature of the film and add some comedy, some comic relief. You know,
I was thinking about this too. Is you have so Matthew McConaughey. What was the guy's name from Hunger Games? That guy.
Wait, who? What?
The guy who died on the water planet. I forget his name.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the actor's name. And then, so there's 4 astronauts, right? 4 astronauts who are also scientists, right? So I appreciate when a film, especially a scientific film, I feel like a science fiction film, I feel like you need a sense of comedy to kind of bring down the absurdity level just a little bit.
Right.
And it kind of like lets the audience connect with them. So usually in a science fiction film, there's like the serious guy, the hero, and then the crap guy who just makes the jokes all the time. And I respect that that guy wasn't there in this. You know what I mean? Like, It seems like if you were making a mission,
like the guy that like kicks his feet up on the console and accidentally sets it into like turbo drive,
whatever. right,
like,
exactly. Like I feel like in most science fiction films, they're team picking and they're like, all right, well, we got to have the crazy guy. You know, like that's just like a law that we have to have. So it was nice that there was 4 scientists that could all just be scientists. You know, like Matthew McConaughey has some like one-liners and stuff, and he's the hero, but whatever, right? So it was nice that none of them had to be funny. You know, It was a great choice to have the robots be funny and be the sense of comic relief and stuff.
Yeah. So that they could do the thing that they have to do.
Right, exactly. And like, I just love the idea of the personality slider. You know?
Yeah,
Dial that humor back. And so on like a crazy existential level, I was thinking about, you know, like personality, and is that all personality is? Is just like a series of sliders for each person? Like if you broke down each person, are they just kind of almost like an RPG character level of like those things? I mean, I don't really think that, but like that was an interesting way to like think about that.
That is a cool way to think
like,
about
well, you know, this guy's humor, he's like a 75. This guy, he's probably like an 80.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it was just an interesting way to really numerically.
It was a cool way to write it for sure.
Well, yeah, totally. And it was a nice like callback at the end and stuff. It was cool. It gave like
when he's going through the settings and stuff.
Yeah. I'm such a big fan of like robots in movies. They're just like, and this was such an interesting way to do it too. They were, I mean, there's so many 2001 Space Odyssey like references in this movie. Like I feel like you can't do a movie like this without. Like Kubrick just like nailed that you can't do this without that. So I feel like the robots in this were like almost these like monoliths. Yeah. You know, it was a cool. It's like no one's ever seen robots like that before.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's also how I think it's really relevant how they did the robots as well. Not even as a convention for comedy, but also in a way that in a way that like younger people like us kind of understand our technology to interact with us because. The marketing points for the real robots in our life, like, have a bunch of comedy. Like what gets us to use them, like what gets us to use Siri, Cortana, even Alexa, like in commercials and in real life, is like them sort of having this like conversational,
and them
like,
to not
attitude.
Seem like robots,
right?
For them to seem like you're talking to like a person and an AI, you know.
So it's entirely feasible to like have a movie set in the future now, which was the future for the film, the more memorable films that we look back to right now, to have these robots that don't sound like the robots, but sound like us.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. So. And that's something I think is a huge success in this movie, in that it works to treat them like characters and not just set pieces.
Yeah. I love the use of silence.
This film.
Like,
oh my god,
when cabins are decompressed, and even sometimes when there would just be like explosions out in space, it's just like, here's what it would sound like. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
there's no way for sound to move. It's just
yeah.
And I feel like that's more terrifying.
Yeah.
Than any amount of sound design that they could do. And it's interesting to watch this movie and Gravity coming out in the same ish year, within like a year of each other. It's interesting to Gravity is science fiction to an extent, but definitely is a thrill ride where this is a little more real.
Yeah,
if,
sure.
If that makes any sense, that kind of stuff does happen. And something also that I think really grounds us in like the science and like the realness of it is the camera's perspective. The camera seems to be always attached to the ship, or gives us some kind of perspective that's not just, whoa, like space, like here's the planet, here's the ship, whoa,
right,
or like we're following it in some.
And we got one of those, but when we did, it was very much like we are showing you what it looks like,
right,
not
exactly.
for grandeur, not for
All of the camera angles felt as if they were camera angles that you would see on the ship, like as if like, okay, we need an external camera to monitor the hull, and this is the feed that we're seeing from that,
Yeah.
And I think that gives us like a really good sense of perspective, in the sense that with space there is no up down, left or right. There's no orientation with that. When you ground the camera to a piece like that, I think it gives the audience a sense of
I got a very documentary style. It was very honest.
Right. And I feel like it...
for something that was so... Throughout the whole film, it was really like that. For something that was so polished, it felt very, very honest. And like even handy cam, like when we were in people's houses and stuff like that.
You know what it felt too? I feel like when the camera is like attached to the ship or some kind of... there's a lot of times where the camera is just like spinning, And I feel like that gave me a very big sense of anxiety that, like, there really is nothing out there for you to latch onto, you, the camera, to latch onto. So you're stuck to this, and this is your only, like, you spinning around is your only sense of where you are in the universe. I think it does that really, really well in this movie. There's so many times where the camera, like, where they're spinning around the space station. It wasn't a space station. It was...
the docking station.
The docking thing, yeah, exactly. We were trying to line that up, and there's not a lot of... you get very disoriented very quickly in that, and I think that's purposeful, and I think it's great that it sets it up like that.
They did an amazing job at like communicating lostness without saying it. Like even their initial descent into space, and just hearing like bassy voices, and nothing else. You know what I mean? Was I remember, just feeling the weight of like, well, I could never do that.
Yeah,
I couldn't handle this. I'd be like, let's go back down. Like,
man. Oh my god, there were so many times where the stuff they're doing, I was just like, man, I'm not built
for that. Yeah.
Oh man.
Especially it did a lot of what you're talking about. Especially took place when Cooper had to eject. Yeah. I was so scared in that moment.
Oh my god. You and my wife, you're both like,
yeah, like,
there's like this, like, all the air, the whole room got decompressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like and that was a big moment too. I remember in the theater when the first time they entered that black hole, I was like stuck. I was like on the edge of my seat. I was like, what is going to happen? How are they going to show this? What are we going to see? What's it going to be like? I was so intrigued by that. And then it happens again with Cooper, only this time it's not in the safety of a spaceship. He's like by himself. It's like, what is that like? What's it going to be like? How does he survive that?
Right. How was he not freaking out? He seems so focused on... Yeah. I'd be like, oh, yeah, it was me all along. I'm lost.
Yeah. I don't know where I am.
I don't know where I am.
Oh, my God. One thing I really liked in this movie that it was cool to re-experience was the film opens up with that, like, Dust Bowl, those Dust Bowl interviews. What you think are interviews from, like, the Dust Bowl that happen. You're like, oh, okay, they're just talking about that, and they're relating it to what is happening now, okay? Yeah. And then they brush off that laptop, and you're like, oh my god, it's in the future, and we're experiencing that again. It was such a good, very subtle way to, like, set up where we are and what's happening, and then later in the film, you realize that they really are, like, taught the way we would talk about the Dust Bowl. Like, or, survivors of that would recount that. They're recounting that in this orbiting space station stuff that you see again. It was such a good way to set it up without text saying in the 2050s.
Right. 30 years later.
Right, exactly. It was a very, very, very clever way to just kind of set that up, saying, this is the future, this is what happens in the future, you connect the dots as to how we get there. I think we all know, okay, so I feel, Christopher Nolan's films, I feel, they always have a bigger sense than what they are. So I feel like, The Dark Knight Returns, right? The Dark Knight has a sequence in there where Lucius Fox talks about surveillance. Like Batman, he makes this thing for Batman where he can hear everyone's phone conversation. And he basically says, I don't think anyone should have this kind of power. I'm not comfortable with this. And I feel like that's very much like the NSA kind of thing, right? So for this film, I feel, I don't think it was heavy-handed, but I think it was like, hey, global warming is happening. We're ruining everything. This is what's going to happen. This is one filmmaker's opinion of what's going to happen, or however you want to break it down. But rewatching it, there was something that really triggered that for me was the character who we find abandoned on the planet, Matt Damon's character, who is in it for his own survival, right? Yeah. Will do anything he can so that he survives, screw everybody over, it doesn't matter, and his name is Dr. Mann. And I was like, I don't know if that was really heavy-handed, but I get it, Christopher Nolan. And I feel like he speaks for, the way things are. And, Quizzical is saying the teacher scene about the moon landing is, that's very much
right.
The way some people are. It's like, well, that may have happened, but that's not what we're teaching people what happened. It's like, it happened. You have to tell people that it happened.
Yeah.
There's another note that I made. Let me bring it up real quick. Oh no, where did it go? Welcome to Two Guys on the Phone Cast. He saves himself regardless of all consequences. Yep. Oh, and then Casey Affleck's character. When Coop's son grows up, he becomes Casey Affleck, which I wish every son would grow up to be Casey Affleck. No, the actor, not the character. So he's very much stuck in his ways. Doesn't want to hear about what's happening. He's just dealing with the world. Doesn't want to see a doctor. Doesn't want to admit that what he's doing is bad for his family or bad for anything. He just wants to live his life and just shun everything out, And I feel like all these characters are little representations of maybe Christopher Nolan's view on the general public, and their...
and how dismissive they are.
Sure, yeah, and the teacher especially.
And how they kind of lead to their own demise in a kind of way.
Right.
Yeah. I can see that. I very much I was able to quickly accept that Cooper's daughter, if there was going to be any hope for the world from someone who was actually on Earth, it would be her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't trust anybody else.
Yeah.
We got a question from the Cinemalog on Twitter.
Oh, hey, man.
We really love. Hey, Cinemalog. He says, dumb question. There are no dumb questions. Well, yeah. Do you think Spielberg, who was to direct the film, go back to Spielberg,
would it be the best film ever? Yes, it would.
Yeah, would have made stronger points in its emotional core. Stronger points.
Probably. I think Spielberg is better at that stuff than Christopher Nolan. So it probably would have been a more emotional film. It's not to say that this movie doesn't have emotion.
I think this movie's incredibly emotional.
I think
it's so emotional.
For you said that Christopher Nolan's films all have to deal with time. For this movie to
they do.
What? Oh yeah,
they do all have to do with time.
And he always does it in an interesting way.
Shoot.
So I think this movie just made it super realistic, or not super realistic. This movie opened my eyes that time is unstoppable, and keeps marching on, and it just there's no going back. You know, this movie, like, it's a big theme in this movie that time is just going to keep going, and you know, especially when they go down to that planet and they come back, and the one doctor's like, I've been here for 23 years. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
That's insane. And it's almost an interesting discussion about how we perceive time. I mean, I don't know about you. I feel like my life is accelerating at an incredibly rapid pace.
Since
when? Well, yeah. I mean, since, you know, we had our kid, I mean, that's a big part of it. But it just seems like there's not enough time. Whereas, you know, when I was younger...
No, I was just asking, like, what age for you did it start feeling that way?
Well, I guess when you're like a teenager, you feel like there's an infinite amount of time, and there's time can't move fast enough. Time moves incredibly slowly. You have all the time in the world. You can't be 18 fast enough, right? And then you go to college and things kind of quicken a little bit. You're like, oh, I can't be 21 fast enough. I can't graduate college fast enough. And then you graduate college and you're working, and suddenly it's like, oh my God, that was 3 years ago we did that. I can't believe that. And now, I mean, my kid's going to be, he just turned 9 months. Like, it does not feel like 9 months has come and gone. It feels like
you just had him?
Yeah, it feels like a 2 months teenage span, you know?
Sure.
You know? And so this was like a nice a reminder of that, you know. Cobb is out having this adventure and having, like, doing these things that, you know, he thinks are majestic and you know, for the greater good of man, and he's experiencing these things very quickly. And then his daughter and his family at home have, you know, his daughter's grown up, his father-in-law passed away, his son grew up, became a man, dealt with the death of a daughter, had another son, is dealing with all of that, and, you know, he's not there to do that. Just very, you know, I think very obvious that
and that was so gripping, like, getting that sense of time, like, when it actually hit. Like, when he was first going through that log of all those videos, like, I was just like, oh man, my heart's not ready for, like, everything that's about to play.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
he's seeing all these huge moments. Yeah, just for him are an instant. You know, and like for these people, it's years and decades that they're of, you know, life, joy, happiness, heartache, and for him, it's just a split second that he has to get washed with this wave of emotion, like, real quick. That stuff.
And then when he matches the age of his daughter, like, oh my gosh, that was really hard to swallow.
One thing I kind of wish they would have expanded on a little bit was at the end, it felt like Coop. So they rescue him, and they reveal they're going to bring his daughter. They're going to bring Murph. It's going to take 2 weeks, and then he meets her, and she's an old lady, older than he was. And I feel like he just deals with it very quickly. I almost wanted more from that. Like, I wanted more, I guess, just heartbreak from him. I don't know. I just wanted to experience that just more.
Wait, you're talking about the final message? Right.
Well, in the future, I mean. In the future, when he's...
when they actually meet.
When they meet, and she's an old lady, and he's still, like, the same age. I guess I just wanted more.
Yeah, it was so disconnected in a kind of way, where she was just like, well, I have my own kids, and, like, he was just like, all right, well, I guess I'll just...
Yeah, I'll just go explore again.
This chick that...
Yeah, I mean, I understand that.
I do get that.
I get her message about no father should see their...
Right.
Their children die, yeah.
I get that, and then... I also kind of get the idea... I get from her perspective the idea that he really wasn't there for the majority... He actually wasn't there for the majority of her life.
Yeah.
And, like, there is this love, there is this connection, there is this companionship.
Uh-huh.
But it's, like, different, right?
Because, it's a different kind of love.
It's definitely... Yeah, exactly. It's, like, a different kind of love. So that sort of, like, makes sense of it for me.
Sure.
But I guess I really wasn't sure what I was going to expect when they finally saw each other after all that time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It was a lot.
Yeah. But it was amazing seeing the sort of turn, like seeing her sort of come around and realize that this whole time, like, her father was communicating with her.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's almost. I think the emotion part of all of that would be better served in another movie. I think that kind of story about time and emotion and what it does to you, I think, would be a really interesting movie. Aside from the science fiction part of all of that, some kind of time travel story about heart and heartbreak and long distance love might be really interesting, but
intergalactic love.
Yeah, right. But maybe it just doesn't fit into this kind of story that he was telling. Maybe that's.
Oh, you're saying you felt like the familial relational struggle.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and for me,
you felt like it was out of place here.
No, not out of place. I wanted more from it. So
okay.
For me, it's like
yeah.
It'd be interesting for someone to explore that that aspect of it in like another movie, maybe.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Really interesting stuff.
Do you want to open up the floor to?
Yeah. If you guys have questions or anything, well, hold on. Why don't we do a couple questions about Interstellar?
Yeah, because we have stuff in the subreddit.
Yeah. Why don't we'll take questions? You guys send us some questions if you have any. We'll break down some questions from the subreddit, and then we'll end our podcast and maybe just hang if people want to hang, kind of thing.
That seems good.
We'll do that off the podcast. All right, so let me read you a couple from our subreddit, Satchel. Ready? Okay. Yangus PR1M3 says, Interstellar for me fell apart around the time they had to find the sole survivor on the planet. With literally the fate of the Earth and everyone on hanging in the balance, 2/3 of the way into the movie, it feels it needed to add more risk. They were running low on fuel. They had spent 20 years on the planet. They still needed to add a fist fight with a plot of tricks, infighting, and sabotage. To me, it felt like a cheap way to pad out the movie with an extra 30 minutes. Without the fist fight in another galaxy, would you still have the stakes? Or would that still make Armageddon blush? Also, the robots were pretty dope. I totally get that, and I understand that feeling because have you ever seen the film Sunshine?
Is this called Sunshine?
Yeah, it's called Sunshine.
No.
It's oh my God, why can't I think of the guy's name? I met him in person. He's awesome. He's one of my favorite directors. He directed Danny Boyle. Danny Boyle directed it, right? And it's similar kind of thing. Earth is falling apart. These people have to go into space to save it, kind of thing, right? Very interesting movie. Very good sci-fi movie. Very well done. But then in the third act, there's like a bad guy that shows up that just hasn't been there. There's just been no bad guy, minimal conflict, and then a guy shows up, and we have like a third act about that instead of everything we've been dealing with in the first couple acts. Okay. And I could see feeling like that with this movie, where everybody is such a do-gooder and everybody just wants to like make everything really good, to have a bad guy show up and feel like cheated, But for me, it didn't bother me that much in this movie as it did in Sunshine. In this movie, it just felt about survival. So many of these people are fighting for the greater good survival. It was actually kind of nice to see someone who didn't care about anyone else and just was worried about soul survival,
That made it so relatable. It didn't feel like a stunt. It just felt like that could be me. Yeah. Like, I could arrive in another galaxy on another planet and be like, whoa. Yeah. No, I don't want this.
I need to go home. Yeah.
I need to go home.
Like, the feeling of needing to go home is very powerful, and I think that... and
it's almost scary that no one else feels it.
Right.
Other than Matt Damon. Everyone else is just like, yeah, can we just stay out here forever? Like,
yeah. I think it's fine to feel that way, but I can understand and relate to his character, so it doesn't feel like super out of place.
Yeah.
Akira says, are you allowed to talk about the ending? Feelings during the movie I constantly had. No idea how Nolan was going to end it. Still not sure how I feel about it in the end, but a movie's got to be a movie. Mm-hmm. How did you feel? Do you feel the ending kind of worked for you?
I did. I wasn't offended by the ending, or I wasn't really lost with it either. I was fine. Like we kind of talked about it earlier over Chinese. I felt very much like at that point when we were kind of wrapping up like this fifth dimension logic and tying up the communication and everything that had sort of been like all the foundation that had sort of been laid in the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. I was okay. I trusted where I was being taken with the story,
sure.
And I trusted that anything is possible in another galaxy, and I understood that anomalies are welcome. Like, they're cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're really interesting. I was kind of set up for something really crazy happening. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Like, after he hit the eject button on his seat, like, it's like, all right, well, we're flying out into the unknown. Like, I really want to see how this gets wrapped up, because the stakes just got raised like crazy in the last half an hour.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, as far as the ending goes, it made sense to me. It was cool.
Yeah, it definitely felt... some movies that I watch have this kind of climax, and then the resolution, and the movie is just over, and the spike is just kind of boom, climax, and then movie over. With this movie, it felt like climax, and then kind of like bringing it down to landing. You know, it felt like a very subdued, kind of like controlled descent down into like the end of the movie, and I kind of liked it in the sense that I don't know if I could cerebrally handle the movie just ending on the eject part, or at the conclusion of the kind of like fourth, fifth dimension kind of thing. I feel like I needed to be kind of like brought down to earth a little bit. So for me, aside from like feeling like I had to pee a lot, you know, I was ready to be like, okay, kind of bring me down into reality. All right, we're good. You know what I mean? I mean, I like the ending. I liked seeing what happens to him. I don't know how I feel about the. I can't remember her name. The other astronaut.
What's her face? Oh, yeah, her. I dreamed a dream of time gone by.
I was just about to say her character's name. Oh, Anne Hathaway.
There we go.
Oh my god. I dreamed a dream. All right, next episode we're going to watch Les Mis.
Les Mis, right?
No, I really...
Ooh,
I kind of wanted to see more of that.
We should bring Michael Berardi onto the show. You know Michael Berardi?
I don't know. Who's Michael Berardi?
You don't?
No.
Belated Media?
Oh, yeah. Dude, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. For the future. Anyway, go ahead.
I'll do it if we could watch Sweeney Todd at some point.
Oh, dude, yeah, that'd be tight. Wait, does he have a thing on that?
What?
Is that his
Oh, thing? No, I just like Sweeney Todd.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just like the songs from that one.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Dude, Les Mis would be cool, yeah. We could talk about Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted her resolution. I like that it ended in like a Christopher Nolan kind of way, where it's like, does he get to there? Does she?
Right, yeah.
Whatever,
yeah.
That's fine. It's fine with that.
Well, we know that she settled the plan.
Yeah, she's on the planet, but like, does he ever make it? Like,
oh right, does he
know
ever
what I mean?
See her, yeah.
I'm fine with it not seeing that. You know,
I did like that new like dark NASA suit he was in.
That was cool.
That was pretty BA. I was down for that.
You know what was really there's one shot that I kind of felt like, what is that scene doing there? Right, where he takes the spaceship and then there's the guy walking by with his clipboard, like the hangar janitor or whatever. It's like, well, just got to make sure that all the spaceship. What? One spaceship is gone?
Oh yeah.
I feel like I was like, what is that? Like, I'm fine with it. I'm fine that it's there, but I was just
served nothing. Yeah, it wasn't nothing.
It felt so out of place. It was just like, who? What? We know it's gone. This guy doesn't need to know that it's gone. Like, I don't need the logistics of like that he stole a NASA ship or just let him go. I don't need to see that. All right. Next question. Mousy with power. IMAXL was a shot of Brandon Doyle. That's pretty cool.
That's good.
Oh, as for the movie, it sucked me. Oh, I just read it basically sucked, and I was like, what? No, it basically sucked me in and never let go. I don't think I ever thought there was a part of the movie that I started to get restless or thought a part wasn't as strong. I was totally fine with the reveal inside the Tesseract / fistfight on Man's Planet, etc. Like the only real negative the movie is that it has Topher Grace being definitely out of place from second one he's in the film. His character does come out of nowhere, and I get it, but I was fine. I was just like, that's just Topher Grace. It would have been better if it was just a non-character, a character that we weren't familiar, or an actor that we weren't familiar with. Right. I think at this point in Nolan's career, I think he's just going to work with people that we know.
Yeah.
I'm not a dad, but I kind of aspire to be, ? If that's a thing. So I feel like a lot of the podcast will be Nick having dad feels. There's a little bit of that happened. That's all right. That's fine. This is basically Christopher Nolan's Dad Feels the film, and I love it for that. I held off crying for an hour, and then as soon as Coop sees messages back home, I lost it. Cried so much for basically the rest of the movie. I look forward to this episode a lot. I don't think there was too many dad feels.
Yeah, I don't think it was explicitly that.
No, I mean on our end.
For us?
Yeah,
oh.
yeah. I don't think I would do it. No, but I think it's fine. Hey Dan Jones. How are you?
Dan Jones.
Dan Jones. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the emotion in the movie, and I think it's totally fine to have those feelings, guys. If you feel like you might care for your offspring, I think it's okay for you to feel it in your dad loins that that you care for your imaginary child. I think that's fine.
I don't know what to do with that. I'm sorry.
I mean, you had some dad feels, right?
For this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. It definitely wasn't dominant, but they were there. Yeah, they were there.
Well, it didn't help that my kid was
like when he checked the messages,
my kid was like looking up at
all
you,
this other stuff.
And you're like, you're like looking down at him, and you're like, oh my god, it could be my kid.
Do you think Interstellar is a movie built on lies?
Examples:
moon landing in a textbook, Kane's failed research, Damon's failed research. Oh man!
So wait, what is it? What is the question?
That hit me like a ton of bricks when the failed research was like made clear. Do you think Interstellar is a movie built on lies? Moon landing in textbook, Kane's failed research, and Damon's failed research. Well, there's definitely a lot of deceit, and it's all for the sake of preserving mankind, sort of. So, Kane's failed research is the preservation of mankind in a very,
greater good kind of way?
Greater good kind of way, which is subjective, right? Because I don't know if that greater good was putting 4 astronauts out there,
right?
Not knowing that.
Yeah.
They said that Plan A was essentially a complete ruse.
Right.
But nonetheless, he did it so that the proper research could get done.
Yeah.
And in many ways, that was the 90% truth.
Yeah, yeah.
You know
I wonder if...
And then Damon's failed research was just to protect himself. That wasn't for the good of mankind.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just for his own thing. One, the moon landing thing, I think that's... If the world was set... the world was in that kind of dire straits, does it make sense to alter history so people focus on that? I don't know if that's... So if something like that happened here, right?
Like low resources and stuff?
Yeah. Like, would it be okay to lie and rewrite history in a sense for the greater good? You know,
that's.
I mean, it's such a moral kind of.
That's hard. I mean,
that's such a moral thing, and then all these events kind of like get set off because of that. Maybe like the NASA program being shut down and like operating in secret. Yeah, what a mess.
It's just a mess. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Part of me's like, I mean, I guess you got to do it. Like, you know, like how else are you going to get people to sacrifice everything to save mankind, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like you're also like eliminating any kind of like hope that they have. But I guess you're like redirecting their hope.
Right.
If people are like, oh, the hope is out there, and we'll find something else. I won't, but somebody will find something else.
Yeah,
out there,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like you're redirecting, like, okay, well, we can make this. I hope we can make this a better. I get it, but it's scary.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
It's scary when you play with people's like hopes and dreams. Like,
yeah,
that.
exactly.
That's terrifying. All right, let's do a couple more, and then we'll be good. Let me see. Here is a tweet coming in. Here it says, "Why did they cast John Lithgow? Was that a third Rock from the Sun joke? It threw me off."
Third Rock from the Sun joke.
I think only if they put JGL in there too. That would be like way too on the nose for a third Rock from the Sun. Okay, here we go. Here's interesting. This is on our subreddit. And Renfro says, "To me, Interstellar feels overrated in that I liked it. I did think it was a good movie, but it wasn't the amazing odyssey for me that so many people find it to be. The most striking image of the movie is the image of the Tesseract and how it parallels memory of the mind. Just as the Tesseract is a 5-dimensional space compressed into 3 dimensions, memories in the brain are 4-dimensional space compressed into 3 dimensions. How often do we, quote, travel to different regions of our brain, looking as though through a window at our past selves, wanting to change the way things play out? Certain decisions, certain words, certain forks in the road, you scream at yourself, don't do that, you idiot. But the people in the memories never hear us, and history always repeats itself exactly. Red's monologue at the end of Shawshank comes to mind. I look back on the way I was. I want to talk to him. I want to try to talk some sense into him. Tell him that the way things are. That scene invents a great visual of the idea of regret. And since Cooper actually does find a way to affect change through time travel, another thing that scene provides is the ultra wish fulfillment that can only exist in the movies." Very interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
can I frame that question?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Very good. I would beg to differ that this movie, that he does any kind of time traveling. They set up that you can't move forward and backwards through time.
You can only have it so that it's right in front of... Like, the situation he's in is that it's not... I started saying that and I was like, hold on, let me think about this.
Yeah. I feel like he always did it. Like, he's not really...
Time isn't an event when he's given the ability to use it to change things.
He's not really going back and changing anything. The things that happened always happened.
That's right. They always
you know what I mean? So he's...
That had me wondering, wait, so is there a plot hole where like there's kind of like an infinite loop of...
For him, he kind of like circles back on his own destiny, on his own time. Yeah, there's not like a paradox or anything. So it's not... So we're experiencing his journey. We're experiencing his journey, and then he kind of doubles back on things that we've seen and the journey again, but he always did those things. You know, like he wasn't going back and affecting, like knocking the books over, messing with the dust. He always did that.
Right.
We're just observing it for the first time.
In the end.
Yeah.
We're observing for the first time in the end. That's right.
Right, so he always kind of did those things and did this
Wait, but then... No, but then there has to be a reality where it didn't happen.
No, there's only one reality. It just always happened like that.
No, it can't be, right?
Yeah.
There has to be a reality where that didn't happen, or else he would have never needed to get lost in that other galaxy to do it in order for his daughter to understand.
I think
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. But I think he always does those things, so it's like a predestination or paradox kind of thing, where like all of these events are setups for him to...
It makes you think of Harry Potter. Remember when that happened?
Yeah, the time turner thing?
Yeah. Is that...
That's what... So...
Is there a problem with movies that do that? Like, because doesn't that end up being...
a whole other thing, man. We should talk
I know. I'm not trying to be that guy.
No, I love it. No.
But, like, doesn't that create... Because I've never actually had a chance to talk about it. Doesn't that create the infinite loop, though?
Yeah, so... So pretty much... Bioshock. Oh, and Akira. Well, some of these fans are better at the show than you. That's not an encouraging thing to say to somebody. Thank you for that. Jeez. So I kind of feel like there's at least two different kinds of time travel in movies. So there's time travel where you go back in time and you stop yourself from doing X thing, and basically what happens is causes like a new timeline to happen, right?
Right.
So, and then this one kind of goes away, and this is the new one, and that's the way it goes from then on. That you can go back in time and change things, and it makes a new thing happen, and then it happens, right?
Yeah.
So then there's like other timelines where, or other time travel things where you going back in time is something that you always have done and always will do, right?
Right.
So this is like my senior film all over again, right? So so Marty McFly goes back in time, right? Okay. So Marty McFly goes back in time, right, and changes the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Marty in 1985, his parents are like lower to middle class, right, living in this house, and things aren't great, right? Marty McFly travels back in time, does a whole bunch of stuff, makes a whole new timeline for his family where they're upper middle class, things are better, his mom and dad get along, everything's better. Biff went from a dickhead that worked for his dad, now Biff works for his dad, changes all these things for the better, right? So that's like, so he went back in time, made this change, and then did it. There's another school of thought where Marty McFly goes back in time and always did that. Like, right. He always went back in time and nothing changes in the future.
Right.
He basically goes back in time to 1955 because he always did that.
Right.
And then goes back like that.
Right.
So that's like, there's like two different ways of like the time travel thing. So like, where does this movie fit into that? Does it?
In my head, I think that it's the latter, but my rationale for it not being an infinite loop is that what Chris Nolan is doing is he's intentionally showing us the manipulated timeline.
Right.
And,
maybe, yeah.
Okay, so that exists. So then two timelines can exist. Or...
Well, could be.
Yeah, I just assume you might know.
I don't know. For me, I really think that it's just a loop, That,
right, yeah.
That Coop goes back, Coop goes into the black hole, goes back, is affecting... See, the difference with this movie as opposed to other movies is that he's affecting multiple times in this timeline. So, like, okay, so this is our timeline, right? Coop enters the black hole, goes back. Whereas, like, in like a Back to the Future sense, he would be, boom, 1955. In this one, Coop is like, here, and doing like all these different things. So that's a really interesting dynamic for like the time travel thing.
That was really cool.
Yeah. Man. Pretty nuts.
yes.
We just got really
yes.
Well, why don't we wrap up the podcast part, and then we'll hang and take a couple more questions from people.
Yeah, that's good.
That sound good?
Yeah, that sounds
all right.
tight.
Well, thank you guys for joining us on our first live stream episode.
This was cool. This was good.
It was a lot of fun. We'll do more of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a second part of this. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we need to do a second part of this?
I don't know. We kind of covered.
We covered
a
lot.
Just I verbally processed our way through.
I guess if there's any additional thoughts that we think of, we'll just cover it in the next episode.
Yeah.
We
could have like a little like recap thing.
Yeah, like a little mini part. So be sure to follow us on at CA Telecast on Twitter, Facebook. Go to our website, catelecast.com. YouTube, CA Telecast.
And we're on iTunes.
Yes. If you enjoy the show, please rate the show accordingly. Let us know. Give us some feedback as to how we're doing.
Actually, why don't we rate a thing?
You want to grab one real quick?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I will kill time in the meantime.
Let's do that. Do it.
So we hope that you enjoy it. We like talking about movies. The next movie that we're going to do is Cowboy Bebop.
Knocking on Heaven's Door.
That's what it's called?
Yes.
So it's not Cowboy Bebop the movie.
No.
Okay, it's Cowboy Bebop Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Yeah.
Okay, I will get it and I will watch it. I've not watched it, so I'm interested to watch it. Then we are going to talk about a 5-star review as soon as Satchel brings it
I
up.
have 1 bar LTE.
Oh my god.
We might save it for part 2. Yeah.
Hold on. Kill time. I'll bring it up because I got my Wi-Fi on.
Okay. Da 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 da. How you guys doing? What'd you eat? Yes.
What did we? Yeah, we had Chinese food.
Okay, see, people still Cowboy Bebop. Awesome, cool. I thought it was weird. Guess it's not. Awesome.
Let's see. Okay, so reviews. Oh, can you not sort them?
Oh, what does it put? Oh, it puts by the vote people put.
Let me see if I can just scroll down to all the things at the bottom. Oh, we got a lot of reviews now. Oh my god. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to grab one?
Oh, dude, yeah, sure. Okay. The podcast I was in quest of by Benjamin Peterson.
Oh, nice.
As a high schooler who was interested in pursuing a career in film, I've been studying the best and worst the industry has to offer. Through this pursuit, I have acquired both a considerable sum of movies and an overwhelming respect for the art. Then comes a podcast hosted by 2 of my favorite video game YouTubers on the topic of cinema. I love the input you guys have for each of these movies I've watched prior to the podcast, and I love the movies you have introduced me to. Her, Eternal Sunshine, The Puffy Chair, There Will Be Blood, all fantastic. Oh, this is a fresh one.
Ooh, nice.
I get to experience the film twice and from 2 different perspectives. Thanks to you guys. Thank you, Nick and Satchel, for hosting this podcast. You guys rock. Wow. Sweet. Thank you, Benjamin Peterson.
Very nice of you. Thank you so much.
That's cool.
I'm glad you're digging it, man. We're having a good time doing it. We're having a good time talking about movies. I said this last time, but I'm really enjoying watching a movie. And
this is me.
about
That's him. The Nova Explosion. Thanks, the Nova Explosion.
I like that. That's great. But yeah, we're glad you guys are enjoying it. It's nice to watch movies and really think about them instead of just like, yeah, it was good. Go see it. So glad you guys are digging it. So we will sign off on this podcast. We will see you next time.
Peace.
The Cinephilia Anonymous Telecast is produced by Satchell Drakes and Nick Murphy. Music by Mark Junker. You can hear more of his music at junker.ca. That's JUNKER.ca. You can follow the Telecast on Twitter at CA Telecast, subscribe on YouTube at CA Telecast, subscribe on iTunes, and check out our website, catelecast.com.